We're good to go. I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with a moment of reflection.
Let's be mindful of the needs of all our citizens and advance only those causes that will ensure peace and harmony in our community, now and always.
I'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather today as the land traditionally used by the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Chinootan people. We acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous peoples with whom we share this land today. Are there any declarations of a pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. We have some minutes. I need a motion that the following minutes be adopted as presented. The minutes of June 10th, 2025 council meeting, minutes of June 24th, 2025 committee of the whole meeting. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Sebin, second by Councillor Wagner. Discussion on the minutes? All in favor? And that's carried. No petitions, no presentations, no public meeting, no closed sessions. Go right to the committee of the whole. I need a motion that council rise and go into the committee of the whole to receive reports and recommendations. Moved by Councillor Brick, second by Councillor Herget. All in favor? And that's carried. And we'll move to Road and Bridge. Councillor Herget.
Thank you, Mayor Nowak. Road and Bridge 9/2025, assessment of crossing guard positions in Wellesley Township. Motion required. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Wellesley receive the analysis herein of the crossing guard positions throughout Wellesley Township for consideration, and further, whereas infrastructure improvements have been made by the region of Waterloo to improve safety for motorists and pedestrians at the intersections of Mansur Road and Ahmet Line in Linwood, and Queensbush Road and Knapsinger Road in Wellesley by way of all-way stops along the walking path of students who utilize these local crosswalks. And whereas comprehensive data collection over the past 3 years indicates that these locations do not meet the threshold in the provincial standard to require a crossing guard. And whereas staff have been in consultation with representatives from Student Transportation Services of Waterloo Region, Waterloo Region District School Board, and the Region of Waterloo, and the agencies have no objection to the recommendation. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Wellesley approve the recommendation from staff to remove the 2 current crossing guard positions located at Mansur Road at Alfred Street and Knapsinger Road at Maple Leaf Street, effective the first day of school in September 2025. And further, be it resolved that staff be directed to develop a transition plan for the affected student crossings, including communication to parents through the local school administration for the proposed alternate routes, and that staff be present to guide pedestrians to the all-way stop crosswalks during the first week of school in September 2025. Can I get a mover? Councillor Brick, seconded by Councillor Wagner. Does the director have a report?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Herget. I don't have a lot more to say about the report. I intentionally put all of the important points that I wanted to touch on in the recommendation, so I apologize for the lengthy recommendation. The important points that I want to touch on, though, are that the region's improved the infrastructure with the use of all-way stops for pedestrians along the route. The decision is supported by data collected through the gap studies, and the staff have been in consultation with STSWR and WRDSB, as you mentioned. And they're both in support of the recommendation as long as there's that comprehensive transition plan that you mentioned in that last point there. So the transition plan is to be communicated through, or the plan for it anyways, is to be communicated through the administration staff at the schools to all the parents, and then to have staff man the crosswalks, the 2 crosswalks, directing pedestrians to the all-way stops for the first week or so of school during the times that the crossing guards will normally be on duty. So that's all I have to say about it. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for the director? Councillor Brick.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for the report. Just a question about the cross at Massacre and Maple Leaf. So if the crossing guard was removed, would the lines and the signage still remain in place for a pedestrian crosswalk just without crossing guards?
That's correct, yes. So it doesn't change the obligation of motorists to stop if there's pedestrians present at a crosswalk. That's always there, no matter what. But we will be on-site directing kids and parents to the all-way stop, as it would be a safer method of crossing the road because it's a stop sign. People are more apt to stop at a stop sign than they are at a crosswalk.
Sounds good. Yeah, I didn't get talking to as many people as we maybe would have liked to for this one. But one of the concerns I heard was that if the lines remain and the signs remain, their kids are going to cross there anyways because that's the most direct route is there up towards the old arena and through. So the concern was that, yes, we can direct them to the four-way stop at the intersection, but that's the preferred route and you're going to get people going that way. So that was one concern that I had from a family that uses it often, so.
That's fair. I think that it's the preferred route because it's the route that they take currently. I don't believe that it's any longer to go to the four-way stop and straight up Queensbush Road. I think it's the exact same amount of steps I think you'd find if you paced it off. So it's more, for us, it's more about education, and that's where that transition plan comes in and communicating it through the administration at the schools and being on site during those, that first week of school.
All for now.
Any other questions? Councillor Seven?
Chris, was there any parent input before the decision was kind of made, or?
We did not seek any input from the public. We went to, like we said, Student Transportation Services, Waterloo Region, and the school board as well, to provide their comments. And like we said, they were both in support based on the data that we showed them and the recommendation and how we're going to move forward with it. This process was kind of started when the crossing guard from Linwood retired there in January, I believe it was, and myself and another staff member were doing the majority of the crossing for a couple of weeks while we were in the hiring process. And even the new crossing guard also mentioned that she didn't necessarily feel that they needed a cross guard there, so we started really digging into the data and doing more comprehensive studies and stuff. So
I was going to say that as well, that I talked to her and she said the same thing, that she didn't think that the numbers warranted one, but yeah, I just wondered if the parents had been involved, so thank you.
Mayor Nowak?
Just a quick question. When are you going to start the communication process? Maybe it's in the report and I missed it.
So I've got it on my to-do list for tomorrow, if this is approved here tonight, to reach out to the two principals at the schools and start working on the communication plan.
Would there be any thought of handing some sort of a notice out to the residents along that area, or?
So I'd like to do it through the school board, through the principals, just because they have their contact list already, and I don't know their preferred method of contacting the parents, whether it's via email. They may have email addresses for everybody who lives in town that doesn't take buses, kind of thing, and that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm going to do it through the school board.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Councillor Brick?
Just a question about, I know the timing on this is a little bit tricky just with being summer and that. Is there an option or a way to defer this recommendation to allow for input should people have it? I'm kind of concerned that if we move forward, then we'll get the input and it might be too late. Just given the summertime, and we all know trying to engage with people is somewhat difficult there. But I also understand that deferring it to our August meeting is difficult with staffing and work plans. But any thoughts on how we could engage people better or what we could do there?
So the reason that I didn't seek public input in the first place was I have a pretty good idea of the input that we're going to receive. I think there's probably going to be the input that I think we're going to receive is probably to keep the cross guard. But I don't think that that's in the best interest of the township and the rest of the taxpayers. And I don't believe that we're putting students or other pedestrians in any kind of danger by removing them. The crosswalk will still be there. They just don't have a crossing guard for that half an hour before and after school to physically say when to go across the road, but cars are still required to stop. There's a safe route there, and if we can get pedestrians in the habit of using the all-way stop, it's going to provide a safer crossing for a much greater period of time rather than just that half an hour before and after. I have a pretty good idea of the input that we're going to receive, but yes, the whole staffing piece of it is going to be very, very difficult if we defer the recommendation.
And just for clarification, we currently have a crossing guard that is looking to return this season potentially, or do we know where that staff person is at?
I don't have any indication as to their interest in not returning, put it that way. And I have not communicated with her yet, the current crossing guard there, to let her know that we'd be looking to go this direction. That would be one of my first calls tomorrow. That's on my list as well.
Yeah, okay.
I just have a question about the numbers in your report there, and like Knapsinger, it shows pedestrians crossing 8. Does that mean there's 8 students that cross?
Yes.
Where do all the students from like Lawrence and Zinken and that whole area, do they not cross there, or do they get bused?
They don't cross there. They cross at the one right in front of the school. They cross Queensbush Road. So they, from Lawrence, Nithbank, that whole subdivision there, they would walk up Village and cross at the one in front of the school, which the crossing guard will remain at that location. So this is, sorry. I'm thinking Parkview, not Lawrence. So from Lawrence, that's exactly where you're talking. So
Yeah.
the students from there cross at that location. There are no buses. But even though that entire subdivision crosses there, there's only 8 students that, on average, 8 students that cross there.
Oh, okay. That's not a number from the school board, that's just from you
That's from our
observing?
observations
Okay.
through the gap studies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the average number over the last.
So others might get driven or whatever, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Council Brick?
Just a bit of a follow-up on how that study, could you explain just how that study was conducted, Chris?
So a gap study is a study that, I don't know if it's in the Ontario Traffic Manual. I believe it's from the Ontario Traffic Manual. And basically what we do is we go out and observe the 5-minute gaps. So every 5 minutes, we measure how many 15-second intervals there are, which is a safe gap. So we're measuring the number of safe gaps that the students have to cross. And there were, don't know the exact numbers there. I don't know. I can pull up the report, but there were more than enough gaps that were identified through that gap study to warrant removing the crossing guards. It didn't really make sense for them to be there in the first place, so I don't know how they were initially implemented. From all the data that we have over the last 3 years, though, there's nothing that would lend itself to suggest that we require a crossing guard at that location. But so the 15-second gap is based on a formula that you use, which is the width of the road and the speeds and different things like that. That's where you get the 15-second gap. If you were crossing a road, much wider road, say it's a 4-lane like Westmount or something like that in Kitchener or Waterloo, it may be more like a 30-second gap that you'd have to recognize. But for our purposes here, it was 15 seconds.
And how many times do we gather the data? I guess that was the one question. One other comment that I got was that it seems low at Queensbush and Village. So they questioned if the other ones are low, So
the Queensbush and Village location, that's just the average. So I'm just trying to pull up the actual report here because
I think it was 80 something.
I believe it was 89, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so 89, but that was the average. So there were some times when it was as high as 115, as low as 75 kind of thing, but the average was 89. And the data was collected, like I said, over the past 3 years, and it was at the start and end of all 3 school years. And it wasn't just one day either. It was a couple of days at the start and end of both, or of all 3 school years. So there's several days of data included in there. It's not just a one-time observation.
thank you.
Mayor Nowak?
Yeah, this is looking down the line quite a ways, I understand that, but there's going to be a fairly major subdivision going in on Gerber Road and 170 some odd homes, and I would imagine there'll be some families involved? Are we going to put some sort of a plan together on how we're going to try and direct those children to walk to school?
So we can, that will be, hopefully, we can get them in the habit of using the always stop again, just like I mentioned. At the time when that subdivision is developed and inhabited, we can look, we can do another gap study. We don't have to do gap studies just on locations where the crossing guard currently exists. We can do it on any intersection we want. And we can just decide at that point if we feel that it's necessary to put a crossing guard back up at that location, or hopefully direct them to the always stop.
Be nice. It's probably not possible, but I'm just thinking it'd be nice to be able to have them walk north to Queensbush somehow on a trail, and then down Queensbush to, that'd probably be their shortest route. I don't know.
From the new trail that's going to be constructed in the subdivision?
But it'd have to be extended.
Yeah, and I think the new trail is going to take them more west towards the fire hall and rec complex, which I doubt people are going to want to do.
Yeah, so that's down the line. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Councilor Brick?
You just also note that I think most of the houses on the west side of Lawrence actually get bused to the public school now with the current circles of transportation. So I don't know for sure where it stops, but I know there's a bunch on the west side of Lawrence that get bused. So the new subdivision might be looking at that option.
If it's outside of the radius, the walking radius for the school, then they may get bused, and I can't comment on that, but.
Good point.
Any more questions for the director? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that's moved.
Okay, we will move to property and fire. Councillor Seven.
Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Wellesley adopt the Township of Wellesley Firefighter Manual 2025. Can I have a mover? Councillor Herget, seconder. Councillor Brick. Would Chief Redmond like to bring the report?
Sure. So the report's pretty brief. It's been a bit of a project going on the last couple months to really just clear up some, not questions, but things that come up in the fire department, obviously with the fire department not being considered regular employees. Part of our employee manual applies to firefighters, but then the rest we've been working off of 2 or 3 SOGs that are personnel, and a lot of things are kind of there, and it's just what we've always done this. So really a lot of the things that are in here are not new. Some things that came up, questions about when we claim hours, when we don't claim hours, and that sort of things that we just didn't have that foresight when we changed our pay structure 3 years ago. I've cleaned that up a little bit. So the idea of this is that moving forward, our firefighters, our officers, our chief officers, they have a black and white to go to. That's there. Those questions that can't be, I was just going to, probably something's going to come up. If it gets passed, I'll probably have missed something. It'll come up in 2 or 3 weeks. But I think we got into there that a lot of the questions and anything that could have come up or has come up, we've dealt with. But just even the things that have always been there, just sort of black and white and laid out, and it will just move us forward into doing that. So that's the whole point of that, having this for the group.
Would anyone have any questions or discussion? Councillor Brick?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. A lot of information in that policy, and thanks for that. I got a couple questions just in regards to the policy. So should there ever be an adjustment to the policy, is that something that would come back before council, or would that be amendments within your scope that doesn't necessarily have to come back to council?
No, the SOPs and SOGs have already existed, and the amendments to wording, like we update them frequently anyway. Like when we come in and even past chiefs meetings or captains meetings, like we get a new piece of equipment, we need to put an SOG in on it as well. So a lot of the, as part of the biggest work that came along with this was getting to something and having an applicable policy to it and stopping our guideline and making sure that, wow, the last time we checked it, that was 2018. So we took things out that don't apply to us that anymore. There hasn't really been any change in what our policies are, like say for like the driving one or the truck check ones. Those are standard. Like those truck checks aren't the fire department truck checks. Those are the MTO ones of what need to happen and that sort of thing. So they've been updated, and that's coming out of this is probably update our entire SOP and SOG package with that. So
Okay.
yeah, if that answers your question.
I think so, yeah. I think overall, I think the document's good, and I support like the direction it's going. I think there's a couple just things that maybe this is my firefighter hat, that I see as misses that you might have feedback as it comes out. So I was just kind of wondering what that looks like. Should you get questions and want to make the change? Does it have to come back to council, or can you make that decision? And it's more clerical, like the couple of things that pop out to me. So it just referred to the driver policy, but it wasn't necessarily attached to the firefighter policy. So I think linking those together into one document.
Yeah.
We also, it noted, from what I saw, it was like the sexual harassment policy, but it didn't get into like, I think we have a bullying and a policy on that.
We do. And then, so the sexual harassment one, for instance, that was pulled right out of the employee manual.
Okay.
And we do have a policy on harassment within but it's not in our employee manual. So that I just migrated over. As far as the driving one, good eye. That was put in there as we speak. Chris and I are actually working on that with Sarah from HR, and we did discuss that to not have to come back. So right now, we already, like in my time, the whole time I've been here, we pull abstracts on everybody every year. We check that. What we don't have is that hard policy on what's too many points for somebody to get. Somebody gets a DUI, what do we do? So we are making that, and sort of as a proactive approach to this, putting it into the policy that this is the driver policy that's going to be whatever council accepts is going to be that, and not have to bring this back in 2 months for the 1 or 2 words in there, because we don't have one as a township that we're shooting that. So that's why that's referenced in there. And there is one I caught actually as well as one of the time on the SOP said 15 minutes, and it's actually half hour in the document. So that's just a matter, I updated that, but I didn't get back to the actual policy attached, and that's just a matter of, that's a clerical thing, so that'll
Okay, so I
match up
think
as well.
clerical would be addressed before it goes out to firefighters. And doesn't
Yes,
have to come back
yeah,
to council.
yeah. And all the district stuff, this has gone out to all of them for last minute perusal and all that sort of thing before it's come to here. So any questions on that have been sent out to them, and their input's been put back into this.
I guess just a question on that, is there support then from all the district chiefs on the document?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean, like all the deputy chief and our 3 district chiefs said this has gone out to all of them before you've got that, with the last date for changes going into the Canada Day weekend. So any input was bounced back and that sort of thing, and wording and second, third, fourth set of eyes on it. That anything I missed or wording that didn't work. So yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? No, seeing none. I'll call the question. All in favor? Passed unanimously.
So we'll move to Admin and Finance, AF&P 22-2025, a procedural bylaw amendment. The recommendation that the Council of the Township of Wellesley approve bylaw 19-2025, an amendment to the procedural bylaw. Could I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Wagner, second by Councillor Seven. And would Amy bring that forward?
Through the procedural bylaw review in the fall of 2024, the closed session portion of the meeting was moved to the midpoint of each the committee of the whole and council agendas. In practice, staff have found that it's not ideal to have, it's not an ideal location, and have routinely moved the closed session to the beginning of the meeting to either accommodate a closed session presenter or staff and council availability. Staff are recommending moving the closed session to the beginning of a committee of the whole or council meeting while maintaining the start times of each meeting as previously approved by council. And of course, the time of the meeting would be based on council and staff availability as it is now, and notice would be provided through the township website and on published agendas. Thank you.
Okay, questions? Councillor Wagner? Oh, you're just,
I can say I may have an issue getting here for 5 o'clock, especially on Tuesdays, but
yeah, I think it was mentioned in there, subject to
Yeah.
your availability, so there
Yeah.
can be some flexibility with that, I'm sure.
yeah.
5 or 10 minutes, 15
Yeah,
minutes.
I got to do the slow crawl through St. Clements coming from work, so it takes a while, being the 40.
Any other questions? I just wanted to clarify one thing, Amy. If the council, and I think it's in the report, I'm sure I read it, but if the closed session goes past the time when the council meeting is supposed to start, we can what's the word for it? Defer it, not defer it, just yeah, and then come back at the end of the council meeting. So that's it, okay, yeah. Adjourn the meeting, that's the word I was looking for, yeah, okay. Okay, any other questions? All in favor then? I'll call it, all, that's carried unanimously. Councillor Recreation, Councillor Wagner.
Thank you. Does anyone have any service board reports? I do not either, so. RAC 6, 2025, 2024, 2025 ICE debriefing report for information. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Wellesley accept this report for information. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Brick, seconded by Councillor Herget. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion? Carried. RAC 7, 2025, Fall Programming 2025 for information. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Wellesley accept this report for information. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Brick, seconded by Councillor Seven. Is there any discussion? Danny, do you want to weigh in on any of these?
No, that's fine, Councillor Wagner. These are just for information reports. I brought forth last meeting that I would be bringing this information before council for this meeting.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation that the Council of the Township of Wellesley accept this report for information. All in favor? Carried. RAC 8, 2025, Memorial Bench and Tree Policy, motion required. Recommendation that the Council of the Township of Wellesley approve the Memorial Bench and Tree Policy, and further that Council approve existing memorial benches based on current conditions for a 10-year term before having to adhere to this policy. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Brick, seconded by Councillor Herget. Would you like to bring something forward on this one, though?
Sure, thanks, Councillor Wagner. Over the years, there have been requests for memorial benches or trees in our parks. Most of these requests have come through the Recreation Department and have been approved on a case-by-case basis. Many times, individuals have requested and asked if we supply the benches or the trees or if they have to supply them themselves. We've taken this into consideration and done some research and are now recommending going to a model where the donors provide a set fee to the municipality and staff would then order the bench or trees from an approved list provided to the donor. The bench that staff are recommending is a bench that we have purchased for indoor and outdoor use at the Wellesley Township Recreation Complex. This bench is made of recycled plastic boards and metal frames and are good for year-round outdoor use. The benches will be placed on concrete pads and bolted down, and the model would be a cost recovery model. For the trees, the donor could select from an approved list of trees outlined in our development standards. The trees would be planted by township staff or an approved contractor. Trees would be replaced by the municipality if the tree failed within the first 3 years. Again, this would be a cost recovery model, factoring in the cost of replacing the tree if needed. Plaques, the donor plaques will also be included in the fee. This policy will ensure consistency, transparency, and clear details to the residents who would like to honor loved ones in the form of an event or a treat. Thanks, and I'll take any questions.
Is there any questions?
So
Go ahead.
this won't in any way affect the benches that are already there?
That's correct. The recommendation is that the benches that are currently in place have 10 years to adhere to this policy. After 10 years, the benches will be looked at, and at that time, they would have to adhere to the policy. If benches fail within this first 10 years, the recommendation would be to replace the bench, they would have to adhere to this policy.
Just point out, I remember when we put those benches in, that was the Board of Trade initiative. Oh, gosh. I don't want to tell you how many years ago it was, but quite some time. And those benches were made from a material, from, when they wrap the bales in the field, and then they take that material, and it was a company in Stratford and they're guaranteed for life. And I think right now they're all looking in great condition. I don't think there's any problem. The only problem we had was that they would uproot. And, kids would push them and they'd uproot. So I like the idea of having these things on the concrete pad now, because they're not going to be able to move them. So I just thought I'd point that out. But those benches have been there for a long time, and they're still in fantastic shape.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'll call a vote. All in favor of the recommendation? Carried.
Okay,
That is it for me.
thank you, Mr. Wagner. Okay, I'll need a motion now that the Committee of the Whole rise, Council resume and report, moved by Councillor Herget, second by Councillor Brick. All in favor? I need a motion that the report of the Committee of the Whole be adopted as set forth in the motions and actions detailed above, moved by Councillor Wagner, second by Councillor Seven. All in favor? And that's carried. And we do have some information packages that was circulated this afternoon. I think it was Councillor Herget that would bring those forward.
Thank you, Mayor Noah. So going to the package, there was two that caught my eye. The first one is the Town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury advocacy for increased income support thresholds for Canadian veterans. The income replacement benefit is a taxable monthly benefit that ensures veterans' total income will be at least 90% of their gross pre-release military salary while they are participating in the Rehabilitation Services and Vocational Assistance Program, or if they have a diminished earning capacity. The benefit monthly amount is offset by other income sources. To encourage activities that are beneficial and meaningful, the income replacement benefit will allow veterans to earn up to $20,000 per year before any offsets are applied. Any employment and self-employment income above $20,000 will then offset dollar for dollar. The eligibility threshold for the income replacement benefit program, which was created in 2019, fails to reflect today's economic reality, particularly in light of inflation, soaring housing costs, and the general increase in cost of living. This letter calls on the Government of Canada and all federal parties to increase the eligibility threshold for the income replacement benefit program from $20,000 to no less than $40,000 annually for a single person household. Any questions?
Questions to Councillor?
Just, do we need a motion or?
No, I don't think we can, don't need do you want a motion for this? No, we can, it'll be staff direction, but I just wanted to thank you for bringing this forward because I think it's really an important thing. I missed it. I admit I missed it. I went through them, but it just didn't catch my eye fast enough.
My son is in the military and that's why it caught my eye, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
No, that's not a conflict. Okay, staff has direction. And the other, second one?
The second one is the Township of Woolwich regarding the rural speed strategy. If you've read the letter, it kind of came about, I believe, because of the Wagner's Corners, Cedar Barn 40 kilometer. And we have a few region roads with school zones as well, and I think it'd be important that we can have input on those if there were to become changes. One point that stood out was the flashing lights during school hours. I'm not sure if that means only the speed is only reduced during those hours, or if it's just a way to notify, but I know we have a couple, Hawksville on Herget Road and Kressler outside of Heidelberg, where in particular Hawksville, it's 40 kilometers. Summertime, there's no school. It would be nice if it would go back to 80, but, or at least 60.
Yeah, and any other questions? So, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that 40 through there, I mean, I struggle with that one. They don't get bused there, they're driven there. They don't have a playground out at the road. The kids don't generally walk to there. So I don't know why it actually needs to be 40, why it couldn't be 60, just to slow it down during school when the parents are dropping the kids off and picking them up, but yeah.
Yeah. And the Kressler Road, it goes from 50 to 60. They could have just kept it at 50 till they got outside the school, but it's confusing for some people, but.
So I'm just going by memory now because we discussed this at the region. Mayor Shantz brought the motion forward. I think I seconded for the region to come up with a rural strategy for the roads. Maybe, do we know, the one on Wagner's Corners now, has that gone up to a 60? I think it has. So they've changed that one. And that was part of the motion that I
Right.
think that we put forward. We did also include in that motion them to review the use of those flashing lights, the
Okay.
flashing lights. If you drive up, if you drive up Clifford Way, all through those small towns, they all have them. That's what they're using primarily. So I'm thinking that if we have, it's all right to support this, but when it comes to, this is going to be coming back to regional council, thinking late summer, early fall with a report. So if we have anything in particular that we would like to zero in on, you would like me to zero in on at regional council, I'm happy to do that. I'm definitely in favor of those flashing lights, and I'll be talking to them as well.
Are you speaking of the speed, digital
I'm not
speed
sure.
signs, or the school flashing lights on the school sign?
Flashing light on the school.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what the region's going to come up with. I don't know. Chris, have you heard anything other than the fact that they are reviewing this?
That rural speed strategy is something that we've been in consultation with them. I think we've had one, maybe two meetings so far, so it's in its infancy at the moment. But no, other than that, I don't know of anything else that they're working on currently. We do meet with them from time to time. We've had very little input with regards to the ASEs, but we have had a couple meetings recently with staff that manage the ASE program, and they've been looking for input, what's working, what's not working. So we have had a couple of good, productive meetings that way recently. So that was prior to the changes being made on Lobsinger Line, which this report speaks to as well. So.
Well, one thing I really appreciate in this is the comment that, or the recommendation is that the region consult with the rural municipalities before they make any significant changes, whether it's speeding and that, which is something they haven't done before. I'm sensing that there's more of an appetite to do that now with the current staff. So I'm hoping that, in fact, that does happen. But once again, I'd like to be your voice at regional council when this does come. Did they give you an idea when this is coming to regional council? I'll find that out.
Speak to that.
So if you have any concerns or anything in specific, let me know, and I'll make sure you're heard there. And if we want, we could do something similar. We could put our own motion together, and deal with it here. Maybe Chris could help us with that, when the time's right. So just my thought for now. Okay, any other questions for Claude? Okay, no accounts, unfinished business, new business. So we have a CAO report, and our CAO is virtual.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Nowak. I don't have an update for council tonight, but I am happy to answer any questions if councilors do have any.
I've got a lot of questions, but they're not business questions, so. Hope you're enjoying your time away. Okay, we'll move to bylaws. We have bylaw 18/2025, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 282006, being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellesley. That's the Strovest, Ontario bylaw. Then we have bylaw 19/2025, a bylaw to amend bylaw 40/2024, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the municipal council and committees of the corporation of the Township of Wellesley. We have a bylaw to prohibit kite flying on private property and public property, and then we have our confirming bylaw. So I'll need a motion that the bylaws 18, 19, 20, and 21, 2025 be read first and second time. I have a mover for that, please. Councilor Wagner, second by Councilor Seven. And discussion on those bylaws, all in favor, and that's carried. That the same bylaws be read a third time, passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal the bylaw under the corporate seal. Moved by Councilor Herga, second by Councilor Brick. Any discussion on that? All in favor, and that's carried. Next meeting, August 26, 2025. Committee of the Whole, September 16th. Council meeting, September 30th. Motion to adjourn, Councilor Wagner.